r/AskReddit. Reddit, what is your most disturbing, scary, or creepy real story? A few summers ago, I went for a bike ride at around midnight with a friend. We went our separate ways at the end of the evening, and I had about 2 blocks to ride back by myself. Because of construction I had to ride on the sidewalk, but the streets were dead. But it wasn't a problem until right where I was about to turn left onto my street. There was this man walking by himself, maybe in his 40s, a little scruffy but not homeless. The sidewalk was narrow, and I didn't want to freak him out, so when I got about 6 feet behind him, I said, "Hey, behind you," and he turned around and gave me this super angry look. I turned down my street and he started to follow me, literally screaming about how I was a freaking jerk, and he was going to kill me and all that. I live right off the corner and I didn't want him to figure that out, so I decided to do another loop around the block. But that's not the scary part. The scary part is that when I looped back around and looked down the street, I saw him standing on my freaking front stoop staring out at the street like the freak knew I lived there. He saw me ride by again, but he didn't say anything. I ended up going back to my friend's house, but my bike got stolen from the alleyway by the house 2 days later. Edit. The guy in question was definitely not actually homeless. We have a large population of mentally ill in that area, unfortunately, downtown of a medium-sized city, so if I didn't think that the sidewalk was too narrow to pass, I wouldn't have disturbed him. Half the scary part was that he looked pretty much completely normal for my area. That being said, I ended up texting my mom, and she made the decision not to notify law enforcement until my bike was stolen. I have a friend who lives in a super sketchy neighborhood, and he was riding his bike at night back to his house. On the other side of the street was a strange man, and the man turned around and started charging towards my friend with a knife in his hand, screaming, "I'ma freaking kill you." Friend narrowly dodged the crazy murderous man. Thankfully, he never goes riding his bike at night anymore. I had awesome parents who let me sleep in the living room on weekend nights when I was very young because my sister was a light sleeper and I could stay up until dawn. But of course, I always end up sleeping on the couch because Nick at night made me tired. So, one night I wake up to the prickly feeling, like an instinct. I just bolt into a sitting position and stare out the front window. We lived in rural Georgia, so you can imagine the magnitude of trees. In perfect light cast from the moon, I see a silhouette of someone in this freaking tree. The family dog dashes to the window and is snarling into the glass. Terrified, I run into my parents' room and try to explain to my parents that there is a strange person outside. Dad grabs something defensive and darts outside with the dogs to beat the wax off the hothead. I tremble in mama's arms until dad comes back and says he saw no one, and to go to bed. I decide to sleep in my regular bedroom. I fill my sister in as to what happened. Dad is making regular rounds in the house with a cup of coffee. We're all still, and I finally think I can sleep. Nope. I notice the man outside my window. From what I can see in the moonlight, he gives me a shush signal and runs away. Just turns around to run a straight line away. I swear I couldn't stop crying for what felt like hours. This same thing kinda happened with me. I was asleep in the living room and was suddenly awake, like wide awake. I heard my cat growling and looking over across the room, and I looked over too and saw a big silhouette faintly human shaped. I couldn't see any eyes or anything, but I knew it was looking at me. I slowly sat up and leaned in closer to look at it and see if it moved. I probably sat there for 10 minutes staring at it before a sudden feeling of peace washed over me and I laid down and comfortably went to sleep. I woke up the next morning and saw nothing there that could make that shape. I don't sleep in the living room anymore. My house sits farther back in the lot than most other houses. It has a strange layout as well. The sidewalk runs the length of the living room and ends at the front porch, which lets into the living room. Large windows that do not open allow great light to get into the living room, but at the cost of no privacy. The rest of my family was on vacation, and having the house to myself, I decided I would get smashed. Well, I passed out on the couch in the living room at about 9 when I realized I was too scared to walk back to my room. The couch was right underneath these big windows. I woke up suddenly, not knowing why. I had a severe case of the chills, and I could not figure out why. Then the banging started. It came from right above me. I did not move, but I opened my eyes and looked up at the window. Someone was standing there, pounding on the glass, without moving. I looked at the cable box. It was around 3 in the morning. The banging continued. Then it stopped suddenly, but I still did not move. Suddenly it commenced again, coming from 2 different directions now. Someone was banging on the window and another person was banging on the front door. They kept doing it and would not go away. Finally, after about 40 minutes they quit. It was the most terrifying event I can recall at the moment. I was a nervous wreck after that. I called a friend the next day to see if he would come over and stay for the rest of the week, and his response was, "What the frick for? So that we can both be murdered in our sleep? Thanks a lot, jerk." This happened to me as well, and I did call the police. When they arrived, the gate was open but no one was around. They told me that this was a common practice of burglars. They banged on the house to make sure that no one was home so they could break in without being caught. I was 17 and had just gotten my license. Back in high school, my friends and I had made it a mission to find abandoned houses to throw parties in. We had a few good candidates, but the MacLeod was this house I would pass on my way home from work. It was an undeveloped shell of a huge home with a large property in the back. I had told one of my friends about it, and one day, before we went to see a movie, I took him to the house. It was about dusk in summer, so I had my headlights on. I pulled into the front of the house and we were there for like 10 seconds tops before we pulled back to go to the main road. A minute later, this big truck pulled up behind us with its high beams on and riding our back. My friend and I took note of it but paid it no mind as we headed back to the main road. At the light, I turned right, but the truck cut through the gas station at the corner and blocked us off. Out of the truck came this big hulk of man, and my friend and I were pooping our pants. He knocked on the window and I rolled it down. Now, the really freaky part was that this was a busy road and now there was no one in sight. He asked us what we were doing at the house, and I quickly lied and said we were making a U-turn. He stared at us for a few seconds, smiled, and sent us on our way. To this day, the house remains unfinished, and I'm convinced it's a drug operation of some sort. TLDR. Don't go into abandoned houses, man. Similar story. I had just gotten home from Iraq and was visiting family up in the country at my grandparents' house. On the way back to my mom's house after dinner, the check engine light flipped on and I pulled over as soon as I could to check the fluids and such, and I was crazy low on oil. Breaking down out there was bad simply due to the narrow roads and the miles you had to go to get anywhere. My mother was supposed to be leaving not long after me, so I sent her a text because calling was futile and decided to look around for a bit until she showed up. I had pulled over fairly close to this property alongside the river, but there was a crude wall in the front yard blocking the view from the road. It looked abandoned, so I let myself in. There was a lot of pot growing inside the house. Everything had been gutted, and it was just plants and those eating lamps. I noped out faster than heck and waited for my mom to pull up by the car. I put oil into the car and was about to be on our way when this rusty red truck drove by. The driver slowed down and looked at us, then turned around quickly and pulled up behind us. He was an older guy that looked like he hadn't showered in days. He had on blue overalls and no shirt. He jumped out and ran up to my mum's car and started knocking on her window. I thought to myself, frick, I'm going to have to kill this guy because we are going to die. We told him about the car and about me just getting home from deployment. He just stared at us for what felt like forever and then told us that next time we broke down to do it somewhere else. He stood by his truck until we were out of sight. TLDR. Had car trouble in the middle of the country, stumbled onto a pot growing house, got chased down by an angry mountain man that let us go after hearing our story. Okay, so this happened to me last summer when I was back at my parents' house during the holidays. It was around 3 AM and I was in my room on my computer when I got a call from my sister. Now that was already a little bit weird since my sister's room was just down the hallway from mine and she could have just come to my room. I went to pick up my phone and the call ended. As soon as I reached the phone, I figured that she wanted to speak with me, so I got up and went to her room. As soon as I reached her door, she started screaming that someone was in the room with her, so I busted in and of course nobody was there. After she stopped crying, she told me that she woke up and saw a dark shadow just centimeters from her face and that's when she screamed. I told her that I got a call from her and she told me that her phone was not in the room with her and that she was sleeping. Sure enough, her phone was actually downstairs in her purse. The weird part was that I had the log of her call on my phone but she didn't. Never managed to explain that one. I was delivering a hot tub to this contractor/realtor in this fancy, gated community near Branson, Missouri. When I arrived, the construction workers were in charge of telling me where the thing was supposed to go. It was going on the 4th floor balcony, but because of the way the house was built, the 4th floor was the ground floor. The other 3 floors were on the side of a hill, but the driveway was even with the first 4th floor entrance, if that makes sense. So, there was a lot of construction going on, but to get the hot tub on the balcony, I had to make a ramp, take it from the driveway, down into the yard, up a ramp to the porch, through the living room door, across the living room, out the back patio doors onto the deck. Problem with this was, the deck was unfinished. A huge section of decking was missing. They had literally installed only enough decking so that I could go from the patio doors to the far corner of the deck, where the hot tub would sit. There was no railing. The hot tub weighed 900 pounds, and it was a 4-story drop if I fell. The construction workers volunteered to help me. We got it out onto the deck, crossed the narrow bridge of installed decking to the corner, and I was about to lay it down. For clarification, I had to move these on a dolly while the hot tub was on its edge. Laying it down wasn't that hard. I had to tilt it, bring it down to my lap, grab the strap securing it to the dolly, and lower it to the deck. It was very controlled, and I'd done it thousands of times. However, this deck wasn't finished, so the contractor wanted to leave it on its edge. It was a lot harder to take it off when it was standing up because the dolly was under a 900-pound tub. But I'd done it before. I told them that we would have to put blocks under one side of the dolly, tilt the tub, and pop the straps to release the dolly so it could be removed from the area. Then I just had to tilt the hot tub back, remove the blocks, and then set the hot tub down on the deck. Problem: the deck wasn't wide enough to allow me to do this safely. I popped the strap on the hot tub, put the blocks under, and I tilted the hot tub, but that put me with my feet 4 inches from the edge of the deck with nothing but 4 stories of air behind me. We were able to free the dolly on one side, but not the other. The hot tub had to be leaned over further toward me. I tell everyone to freeze and they do. I didn't want anyone messing with it, because I had to shift my feet back 5 inches, so my heels were off the deck. I was freaking out, but it was all going smoothly. I have a construction worker on each side of me helping support the tub, 3 construction workers freeing the dolly, and 1 useless worker playing with the strap that is going to secure the tub to the house so that the wind doesn't blow the tub over. We were inches from having the dolly freed when one of the construction workers freeing the dolly got impatient and kicked the corner of the tub to dislodge it from the dolly. It worked for him, but unfortunately for me, I didn't have my feet set yet. I shouted that I was falling. The 2 guys beside me took the weight of the tub, but no one could get to me. My arms were windmilling. I was bent almost double backwards trying my hardest to stay on the deck. I could see the boulders down below out of the corner of my eye. I was falling, and there wasn't anything I could do about it. I felt myself go. I was falling. My heels slipped out from under me and no one could reach me. But then suddenly, I was flying forward. Something was under the small of my back, and it slammed me into the bottom of the tub. The dolly was removed, and the tub stood up with me hugging it. Before I found out what saved me, the useless guy playing with the strap had already secured one end to the house. When I fell, the strap was already behind me, hanging off the deck. The construction worker pulled it tight with all his might, stopping my fall. It wasn't there for that purpose, but he saved my life that day. I would have been dead if not for him. I thanked him by sending him and his wife and kid to Breckenridge, Colorado for Christmas. It was actually a vacation I'd saved for and was about to surprise my wife and daughter with, but I felt he deserved it more. Plus, my wife and daughter didn't know anything about it. Yeah. That was one of my most scariest moments ever. TLDR. Fell off a 4th floor deck, but construction worker saved me at the last moment, so I rewarded him with the vacation to Breckenridge, Colorado. My grandmother swore by this story till her dying day. It was during the war in London and my dad was a baby. She was bummed out of her house and was staying with a friend. The friend had set her up in a room on the top floor. Anyway, she was taking my dad upstairs to bed when a figure materialized on the stairs telling her not to sleep in that room tonight. She noped back downstairs and told her friend that she and my dad were sleeping in the sitting room that night. Her friend was annoyed, but agreed. That night, a bomb exploded near the house and the roof caved in right on top of my dad's cot. He would have been killed. I have a very similar story. My grandma was around 7 and lived in Germany during World War II. Her town was getting bombed regularly. One day, her little brother kept crying and begged to stay in their neighbor's house for the night. Her parents were okay with it and they went to stay with the neighbors. That night, a bombing run came through and my grandma's house was completely destroyed. It's crazy how close I was to not existing. That's a spooky story, but I mostly laughed at the phrase "noped back down the stairs." I was just chuckling at the image of this woman with a baby in her arms, waddling back down the stairs going nope 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 with each step. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment down below. Please subscribe and click the notification bell for more videos like this. Don't forget to leave your stories in the comments below.